So a question that comes through a lot of people, especially people who are in college, is that how do I know what things I'm actually good at? And you said that you were an undergrad at Berkeley, and then like you saw people around and you got to know the mathematicians. They're a lot better. But how can you actually know what your aptitudes are? And from your career, like what have you learned from seeing different people and how to identify that aptitude?
Yeah, so I mean, it gets us back actually to this theme of that kids are willing to try anything, right? That's how I learned it, right? I tried everything and I found like, hey, computer program, yeah, I'm good at that one. Chemistry, yes, my experiments make good yields and they usually work, right? So you have like the fingertip feeling. Math, I'm good at, but not that I'm going to be a professional mathematician, right? That can derive novel theorems and do things like this. It's same in sports, right? I mean, one of the reasons I do ultra endurance sports is because, needless to say, I'm good at it. I tried lots of other sports, and I found out even as a teenager already that my rapid hand-eye coordination is just no good. And the way I knew this is, my brother's 4 years younger than I am. So like when I was 12, he was 8. And we would do all kinds of things, like anything from playing golf to tennis to playing video games or stuff like that. And my 8-year-old brother beat me at golf, tennis, and video games. And you know, at the 4 age, there's a 4-year developmental difference there. So if you're a 12-year-old and you can't beat an 8-year-old at golf, let's say, maybe they have, maybe they're better at it. And we certainly both tried, right? We both made an effort. We got a teacher and really tried to learn it. And he ended up just being much better at it than us. So I realized that, there's just things, and it's not that I could play golf, right? But he was just, better at it. And so you can certainly teach yourself to learn things, and you can learn from others things, and you can observe other people. But I think in the end, the only solution is you've got to just try out stuff. And then you have to be realistic and I think there's a mantra in like these old US Army ads where they said, be all that you can be. Right? I've maybe even remember that was like their mantra in the ads in the 1990s or something like that. But it wasn't, you can be anything you want to be. It was be all you can be. Right? And so that's the difference here, is that I decided, and other people make different decisions, but I decided I was going to figure out like the things that I'm like really good at, and the things I'm sort of pretty good at, and the things I'm like not so good at, like say playing tennis. And my mother gave me that advice. It's one of those memories. Maybe I was 8 or 9 or something like that, and she told me, figure out what you're the best at and do that for a job, and then figure out what you're the next best at, and then you can do that as a hobby. And that was kind of like the attitude of, okay, I think I know where my bread is buttered. And so I tried all kinds of stuff and figured out that some of them were easier to do and came more easily, and I learned them faster. And some of them were harder to do, and I had to kind of pull nails, right, to learn it. And so that's basically how I settled in on doing the things that I do, both in my free time as well as for work.
Do you think that intuition is innate, though?
I don't know. I mean, like most traits, my guess would be that some people are better at it than others, right? Some people probably have a tougher time figuring out what they're really good at, and they will have to then work on it. And for others, it probably comes more naturally. But I would actually make the argument that if you think that figuring out what you're good at is one of the things that you're not so good at, that one is probably worth spending the extra effort and time doing, right? I wouldn't say it's worth spending a lot of effort doing things that you have figured out already you're not that that good at, but that would be one that would be worth it. And so it takes a certain degree of self-knowledge. And of course, as you get older, you also have more experience, you have known more people in your life, then it's easier to do those things. When you're really young, you don't have that experience, and so it's harder. And I think that's often a problem for people, right? Is that you have to make those decisions when you're very young, but you would have maybe made them better if you had been older. Like, one of the things I love about the US school system is it's very relaxed and sort of allows quite a bit of freedom. Like in the old German school system when I was still in Germany, now they have also relaxed it somewhat. It was actually a situation where at age 14 you had to decide whether you would finish up at age 14 or age 16 or age 19 with school, and that would determine whether you could even go to a science university or whether you would become a carpenter or something like that, right? And in my experience from people that I know, and even knowing myself, there are a lot of people out there when they're 16 or 17, they're goofing off or they don't know what they're supposed to do yet. And so if you're telling somebody at that age already, like you can't do that anymore, right? You're probably taking people that could actually do really well, and then you're kind of shutting them off from being able to even find out whether they could or not. So that was one of the things that I really liked about the US school system, that it's very sort of mixed up and integrated, as opposed to the very stratified school system that existed in Germany at the time in the 1970s and probably still into the 1980s. So, you know, all I can say is it's never too late. If you start thinking, if you have a job or you do something and you start thinking like, I don't really want to come in and do this, you should actually think about doing something else. Even though I know there's a barrier to doing it, it's kind of scary because you're getting paid already to do this, and so, you know, it's kind of scary. But you're going to do it many times anyway. Like people who go into industry, I think they change jobs multiple times in their careers, and so, you know, you might as well face it and do it.
Yeah, instead of waiting. I think that there's on Tuesday we were talking to Gene Robinson. He has this idea of like nurture versus nature, and we were talking about this idea that it's really important to figure out new ways to let more people try different things. Like the school system is a good way to do that, like to let people to try different things. But it seems to be not good enough because when people get to, let's say, college, they're 17, 18, and they need to figure something out. But if you haven't tried enough things, you just pick something at random and you end up here, and then you realize like the first year you don't like what you're doing, and then it's too late because then you're behind, and then it's just like.
Yeah, and so that's the key, is you have to get out of this attitude that you're behind.
Right.
I mean, in the worst case scenario, first of all, in your first year, or even in your second year at college, even if you did declare a major or something like that, there's ample opportunity to still change. I mean, a lot of the classes you take at the beginning, that's true actually even in graduate school, but it's certainly even more true even at the undergrad level, they're pretty generalist classes, right? You're taking like English requirements and literature requirements and history requirements and things like this. And of course, in addition, you might take introductory computer science or science or other kinds of courses or arts courses or whatever, you know, wherever your interests lie. And you might figure out after a year that like, I like this other thing maybe better. And it's really not too late. I mean, you can, you know, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario might be that you do take like 4.5 years to graduate. But you're actually, I think you would be better off doing that than kind of sticking with something. I did that, by the way, as a student. So